pottery class instructor. Divided his class into 2 sections. And he said, okay, section A.
Here.
You will all focus on making 1 pot for this semester. Section B.
Here.
You're going to make as many pots. You're going to focus on quantity. At the end of the semester, all of the pots that were the best, the highest quality pots, were in group B.
Thank you.
Because they spent the entire semester refining their procedure, not trying to master one subset of their skill, but making a bunch of shitty pots. No! That's what you need to do. That's the principle of exponential experience.
So happy to have everybody here, and I just want to tell you a little bit about our guest for today. So Joe Zieja here is a voice actor, author, and educator in Los Angeles, and you've heard him in Genshin Impact as Wriothesley, Fire Emblem 3 Houses as Claude Von Regan, Persona 3 Reload as Kenji Tomochika, Starfield as Dennis Averin, Just Cause 4 as Caesar, Star Fox Zero, The Battle Begins as Fox McCloud, and many other anime and video game roles, as well as sidekick Issei Hoshino in Yakuza Judgment. He's the author as well of the Epic Failure Trilogy, which is a whimsical military sci-fi series described as Terry Pratchett in space. And the audiobook versions narrated by Joe himself are available for purchase. Now, with a passion for teaching, Joe leads LearnVoiceActing.com, where he instructs newbies and seasoned voice actors alike on the ins and outs of the voice acting industry. Joe is also a musician. You can find Joe's Fire Emblem saxophone covers over on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Joe Zieja, and also hang out with him on his Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Joe Zieja, where he streams the games he's been a part of and talks voice acting with fans. Super cool. You can connect with Joe on his Twitter or Instagram. The handle is @Joe Zieja, and facebook.com/joe.zieja, or visit his website, joezieja.com, for links to his books or other media requests. So let's see a warm welcome in the chat for Joe there. So great to have you here today.
Great to be here, man. Thank you for the introduction. My history with voices.com is very long and very storied.
Much longer than my own.
I guess.
Absolutely.
So voices.com is where I started it. It's nice to kind of come back in a coaching capacity and talk to some people. So without really any further ado, I think a lot of times when like voice acting coaches come on, they teach you how to read or they teach you how to act. I'm here to change how you think. This whole presentation came out of a conversation I had with my friend who was like, dude, I don't understand how you're a dad, you run a school, you book a dozen voice acting jobs a week, you write books, and you do parkour and like learn how to fly planes. And it's like, well, none of those things are actually my strength. My strength is actually efficiency. It's time management. It comes from just like, I don't know, innate value of my own time, and also like potentially my military career where everything had to be kind of like disciplined. So today we're going to talk about an introduction to workflow. We're going to talk about my 5 principles of workflow or efficiency. And then we're going to talk about how to apply them from the perspective of a voice actor. Although everything I'm talking to you today about could be applied to just about anything, from cooking in your kitchen to how you parent your kids. Well, we are going to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of voice acting stuff. I'll show you some examples of how I take these principles and apply them to the way that I record or export or read. And then we'll talk about some tools and resources as well. And I want to leave ample time for questions because although these principles are universally applicable, a very personal experience. So we're going to get right into the 5 principles. And the first principle of workflow is what I call the principle of proportional attention. This means we're making sure we're putting our attention where it is deserved. Okay. If anybody here has ever heard of the Pareto principle, also known as the 80-20 rule, it's the idea that 80% of X yields 20% of X and vice versa. 20% of X yields 80% of X. For us, maybe something like 20% of your voice acting clients probably yield 80% of your income. 20% of your voice acting clients also probably yield 80% of your problems and 80% of your stress, right? So making an 80-20 analysis is trying to figure out, is the attention I'm paying to this proportional to its value? Right? And that can help you trim down. Some of the tools that I use to try to make that evaluation, because it's very difficult to metacognate, right? You look at yourself from the outside in. It can be very difficult to do that. So using a tool, my favorite is Toggl, Toggl. It's a timekeeping app that you can use to basically tell it you're doing anything. You can even automate it so that like every time you open up facebook.com, it judges you and keeps track of the time. But you can also do stuff like I was kind of curious, like, how much time do I spend auditioning versus doing the job? I actually recently did it now that I have like a new arm of my business. As acting as like the CEO of learnvoiceacting.com presents a different set of tasks. So proportionally, how much time am I spending in the booth now that's taking me away from that business? And then making the evaluation, is that violating the principle of proportional attention? Am I spending 30 minutes on a corporate presentation audition that's going to pay me $100? That's probably not the right way to do it. Now, there's other ways to maximize your efficiency so that proportional attention works. But that evaluation is the first step, the principle of proportional attention. The second principle is the principle of exponential experience. Quality versus quantity, right? I'm sure I'm going to call out some people in the audience here, but let's pretend that you're talking to some other voice actor and they're like, oh man, you know, if I just had a couple more demos, I could start auditioning, or like, I just need a couple more hours of coaching, or I just need to get my website in order. What they're not doing there is working. They're not auditioning. They're not putting experience exponentially into their career. You can read every book on the planet about basketball, but if you don't get out and throw your 100 free throws a day, you'll never make one. So the principle of exponential experience is finding ways that you can continually add experience. And when I mean exponential, I mean if you do 2 voice acting auditions, the first one should inform the second one. The first and second one should inform the third one. The first 3 should inform the fourth. The first 100 should inform the next 1,000. I break this down with a story that I think is true. I don't know. I found it on Reddit, so you guys can make the evaluation.
Of course it's true.
Yeah, it's got to be true. A pottery class instructor divided his class into 2 sections. And he said, okay, section A, you will all focus on making 1 pot for this semester. It will be perfect. I will evaluate you based on that 1 pot. Section B, you're going to make as many pots. You're going to focus on quantity. Make as many pots as you possibly can. And at the end of the semester, I'm going to grade you based on how many pots you've made. At the end of the semester, all of the pots that were the best, the highest quality pots, were in group B because they spent the entire semester refining their procedure over and over and over again, not trying to master one subset of their skill, but making a bunch of shitty pots. That's what you need to do. That's the principle of exponential experience. Now, this isn't supposed to burn you out, right? This is supposed to make sure that you're efficiently gaining as much experience as possible. One of the biggest reasons I'm a proponent of pay-to-play sites, online casting, is because nowhere else are you going to get access to 100 scripts a week, 200 scripts a week, or whatever it is, right? It's a way to practice exponentially. The third principle I talk about, I just like the name of it because it makes me sound smart. It's the principle of the deferred procedure. Now, I could have just called this the principle of don't multitask, but I want to sound smarter. It's taken from the idea of CPUs, right? Computers, computer theory. And if there are any like computer scientists in the audience, please don't like throw anything at me if I'm oversimplifying here, because I probably am. Your CPU, despite what you think about a computer, isn't actually doing more than one thing at once. What it's doing is billions of things immediately after each other. It is focusing 100% of its attention on each thing and cycling through it, gigahertz, right? Billions of cycles, billions, hertz cycles per second. And it's focusing 100% on that. It's actually how your cell phones work too. A cell phone tower doesn't dilute its signal. It actually is doing, it's like CDMA. This is way back to my like military days. It's switching channels extremely rapidly within a zone and giving your call a bite-sized section of time. Your DAW is doing it too when it samples audio. That sample rate, 48 kilohertz, right? We're back to hertz, cycles per second. It's sampling your audio. It's not efficient for it to focus everything on everything all at the same time. I think we should call multitasking, like we should stop calling it multitasking. We should start calling it intentionally doing multiple things badly. The 2 ways that I talk about the principle of the deferred procedure is A, batching work, and B, weaving work. Batching work. When I go into to read in my booth, I keep pointing this way. You guys have no idea what my studio looks like. My booth is right here. When I go into my booth, I do not open email, read email, open Audition thing, read the specs, read the copy, record, break, edit, mix down, send, next audition. Heck no. I just changed task types 6 times in the course of like a minute and a half. Incredibly inefficient. Open everything, hit record, read everything, edit everything, mix everything down, send everything out. That's batching your work. And that could be applied to lots and lots of different things in life. The other thing is weaving. Now, I actually took this from, if there are any like real nerds in the audience, from MMOs like Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft, right? Every time you click on a skill, like every time your character does something, like, I don't know, throw lightning bolt, right? That skill then has a cooldown. There's a time in which you're waiting for that skill to be ready again. But you're not just going to throw a lightning bolt and be like, lightning bolt. You're going to be weaving other skills into it. Before this presentation, today, like right now, I walked my dog, right? What do you think I was doing while I was walking the dog? Just walking the dog? No, that's a lot of dead time. I'm not going to have a conversation with my dog. It's not going to do anything for me. I was literally listening to a previously recorded presentation of this so that when I came in to this Zoom meeting, I was ready to go. You could be listening to podcasts in the car, in traffic. You can be practicing scripts in traffic. You can be doing all kinds of things. While you're waiting for your editor to send you your files back, you could be working on something else, right? And that goes into the next principle, which is the principle of delegation. Immediately, when I say the delegation, everyone goes, I can't afford. I can't hire somebody to do it. You already hire people to do things. How many of you went hunting for your breakfast this morning? Probably none of you. If you did, that's cool. You're tough. You're way tougher than I am. I don't know. I don't even go to the grocery store anymore. I use Instacart. They bring stuff to my house. They forget the onions. It's infuriating. But we delegate all the time. We don't produce our own energy, our own water. We don't source our own gasoline, right? But when it comes to our business, we go, I can't possibly afford that. Or I don't want to be lazy. I don't need someone to do my laundry for me. I don't need someone to clean my house for me. The only thing that requires us as voice actors is our face in front of the microphone. That's it. Everything else, just about everything else, can be delegated. If you're using Toggle, right? And you go, holy crap, I spend 3 hours a week emailing clients. What could you do with that 3 hours? If you paid someone $20 an hour to do your emails for you, what could you do with those 3 hours? Could you earn more than, if you're just talking purely financial, and I don't want to get in this idea that like money is the end all be all, but like, could you earn $25 an hour in those 3 hours that you otherwise wouldn't have had time to do? You delegate your taxes. Every time you hire a CPA, that CPA, an accountant for your taxes, right? That dude or dudette is going to earn you more than you pay them. Perfect example of delegation, right? Everything has an opportunity cost. Everything. Doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. You give up the opportunity to do something else. Hire quicker. I'm telling you right now. Hire quicker. Is that someone sending out your direct marketing emails? Is that someone editing your e-learning presentation so that you can move on to something else? I bet you can find a couple of things right away that you can delegate. Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, changed my life. I recommend you read it. It's taking that one step further, the principle of automation. Delegating something to a non-human entity. Macros, filters in Gmail, automating all kinds of stuff. For example, every time I send a WeTransfer file to a client, right? I get the confirmation in my email box. It says, you've sent a WeTransfer email to your client. Do I need that? No. I have a filter in my inbox that automatically deletes that. That sounds silly, but aggregate that over hundreds of file deliveries a week, and you're saving yourself a significant amount of time. I have an automation in my Gmail account that every time I get an email from a bum client, like a client that didn't pay me or was just otherwise miserable to work with, boop, a little alert comes up. right? So I don't have to waste time with that client again. I can ignore that email. This can be also things within your computer system. Your DAW is one of the most powerful pieces of software you've ever used in your life, I guarantee it. And we as voice actors utilize 1% of it because it's not made for us, right? It's made for TV producers and composers and stuff like that. There's an incredible amount of power inside your DAW that you can automate. Exporting, normalizing, editing, splitting, all that kind of stuff is in there. Now, like obviously I can't teach a specific DAW here. The best DAW is like the one you know. So I want to show you guys a couple of things here. I'm going to disappear from the screen for just a second. Here's a video of what happens when I get a pickup request. Just watch, and I'll ask you some questions. What I want to do for you right now is I want to show you what happens when you get a pickup request from a client, how fast you can send that off to the client using some good DAW techniques. Ready? Here we go, live. Electric vehicles are the future of transportation. With zero emissions, they're better for the environment and offer a smoother, more efficient driving experience. Charging is convenient with a network of charging stations available, and many vehicles have a driving range of over 200 miles on a single charge. Did anybody notice what I didn't touch? The mouse. I didn't touch the mouse for that entire thing. Your mouse is holding you back. Now, you can't navigate a modern PC without a mouse. But your over-reliance on it is killing your workflow. If anybody at this presentation, anybody in the 100-person audience right now, ever, for the rest of your lives, right-clicks to copy, and then goes somewhere else and right-clicks to paste, get out. You didn't hear a word I said today. Control-C, Control-V. It's all there. You have so many keyboard shortcuts that can destroy your use of the mouse. What did it take me, 15 seconds to do that? Now, if I go even further and I Alt-Tab to the email that's open, drag the file in there using a keyboard shortcut, and hit Control-Enter to send, I still haven't used the mouse. It takes 10 seconds to send that out. Did you know that you can instantly find a file in a folder by starting to type it? If you have 40 MP3s in a folder and you know the one you're looking for is called desktop, and you just start typing on your keyboard, Windows or Mac will just highlight it. Copy, paste. Still don't touch the mouse. You can tab between fields on PDFs instead of clicking and then filling out and then clicking and then filling out. You can use the Windows key to start programs. I don't ever click the icons on my lower desktop. If I want Zoom to come up, I hit the Windows key. I don't know what it is on a Mac. I hit the Windows key and I type STU and Studio One comes up. I hit enter. We're talking about a fifth of a second here. I'm condensing 4 actions into one. 75% reduction in cognitive load at a minimum. It's all there. It's all sitting right in front of you. What else did I want to show? I have a couple other like little examples. Here, how about this one? Export loop demonstration. All the things you're doing in your DAW. Now, let's look at that export macro. I'll show you here in a second. I'm recording something blank. It's just going to be like a blank file in here. I'm going to take this and just drag it over here since it's a little bit easier to see. What you'll see when you're exporting in your DAW is you have these little right and left things on the top. Most DAWs have this. So I need to assign from where to where I want to export. So normally I'd have to manually drag this way. Or in most DAWs, you can press Control and click to set the left border and Alt-click to set the right border. That was even not fast enough for me. So what I did is in Studio One's macro organizer, I created something called Export Loop, which you'll see in here does 2 things. First, it tells the transport to loop the selection. These things on top is also setting the loop, so that if I were to ever want to loop it by playing something over and over again, those are the loop barriers. The loop barriers are also the export barriers, the start and end mark of your export. Then I did Song Export Mixdown, which does 2 things. It sets this as the loop, which you'll see this change in just a second. And then it exports the mixdown, which is this menu here that I could have gotten by going up to Zong and then export mixdown. But in my case, I want it all in one button press. Control E, watch the loop snap. Bam, you see, it sets the loop to the selection. Now I can do that either by selecting the entire event using the arrow tool or the 1 key, or I can select part of the event by using the range tool or the 2 key. And I can switch between them, not by clicking with my mouse, but by using my keyboard. And I can select, let's say I only wanted to export this part of it. And then I click Control E, you see the export loop moves, and it immediately brings up the export screen. Lightning fast, guys. There's all kinds of stuff inside your DAW that's waiting for you, and it almost never involves your mouse. Now, let's talk real quick about a different part of your brain. One of the things that makes, you saw when I did that pickup request, I didn't make any mistakes. I had never seen that, like I didn't practice that script. I didn't make any mistakes. So let's talk about the cold read, because this is another thing I want to leave you guys with today. And then we'll start to get to some questions. I've kind of gone a little out of order here. Cold reading, I'm sure everybody in here knows, but if you don't, the idea of seeing a script for the first time and performing it, right? Going from 0 to performing, or 0 to sending out that audition. Now, before I say this, I will say, and I talk about this all the time when I teach, slow is smooth is fast. You got to start slow, otherwise you just do things poorly quickly, okay? So there's a procedure here. Cold reading is a skill that I've essentially perfected, right? I can read for an hour and make no mistakes. It is 2 things, part prediction and part bypassing. Let's talk about prediction first. Prediction is what we use all the time. Our brain is full of schema and predictive patterns. It's how, like, predictive text works. We guess that what the next thing is going to happen based on what happened before it, right? If you say to somebody like, in order to make a batch of chocolate chip cookies, I need flour, sugar, water, and a penguin. Okay, right? You were expecting something else, and your brain knew what was going to come out next, and I violated your prediction. The other part is bypassing. The way we've been taught to read, especially like standing up and reading in front of a class when we were little, is the words on the page get loaded, get rehearsed, and then get output, right? But that rehearsal stage actually probably doesn't need to be there. Here's how you practice this. You can probably, and I bet everyone has a different capacity here, but the whole phonics thing, sounding words out, we don't actually learn words that way. We memorize them as a picture. The word stop is a picture of the word stop. It is not stop being executed very fast. You can extrapolate that to the sentence level. I guarantee you, if you were to even look at the top of my slide, right? Look at the first 3 words, close your eyes. And then you can see how to crush cold, right? If you expand that, you realize that you're loading words into a queue before you say them. Now, it's very, very short-term memory, right? We're not memorizing the scripts. Start doing that. Start looking at a sentence, closing your eyes and reading it. Open it, look at the next sentence, close your eyes. You're going to get good at cold reading real fast. The second thing you can do, this is my little practical practice for you. If you use the mouse cursor or your finger as you're going, your eyes, forcing your eyes to be further than your mouth, maybe like 3-4 words, is going to force you to skip that editing brain. Try it. We can't demonstrate it here, but I promise, try it. If you really are interested in cold reading and all that kind of memory stuff, Jim Quick is one of my favorite resources, KWIK. Nice guy. Not only does he have dyslexia, but he had some massive accident in his college years that forced him to rebuild his cognitive capacity, and now he can read 1,000 pages a minute or 1,000 words a minute or something like that. You don't have to go there, but you can take a lot of his principles because he was forced to think about how we read, how we memorize, how we take in information. And the more you can master that, the more you can have an ice cold read, the more you can apply proportional attention to things like voices.com auditions that are low paying, but you need to get them out because you want experience, because you want exponential experience. It's all fitting together. One might even say weaving together. We talked about DAW already. I don't want to go into it too much, but you need to start figuring out the list of things that you do that take multiple steps. Write them down and figure out how to build a macro. for them. One of the things I have a set of macros that I sell with learnvoiceacting.com, but they're really only for Studio One, although I will show you how to make all of them as I go through. So you can use it in anything. But these things are really simple. Our needs are really simple. The DAW is extremely powerful. If you can condense 5 things into one, you just saved 80% of your time, even if it's just a click, right? Percentage-wise, it's good stuff. Some random tools that I'll leave you with. Asana is a great tool for managing a team. I actually use ClickUp now. It's a little bit different. Google Tasks, you have a little bar on the right side, and you can integrate that with Alexa. If you're in like upstairs and need to write something down, you could say, I call her Voldemort so she doesn't answer me. Voldemort, add this to my to-do list. Display Fusion. If you have multiple monitors, you can set it up so that one button click opens every product program you need for a certain set of workflow and then arranges them exactly where they need to be on the screen. One click. MP3 gain. If you ever need to match the audio of 400 MP3s at once, you can load them into this machine and it'll pop out everything normalized appropriately without clipping. TubeBuddy and vidIQ are social media things. I actually don't know why I put it on here, but I guess if you want to analyze your YouTube performance. uSelect iDownload, awesome Chrome extension for opening up a billion tabs at once if you want to. And then you can use keyboard shortcuts like Control-Tab to go through them and read and read and read. And you can batch all of your tasks using automation tools to do it. VoiceBot is just a goofy thing I put on here. If you're ever you can install this and you can, if you're a verbal kind of person, you could be like, let's get ready to work. And it hears that key phrase and it does the same thing that I was talking about with Display Fusion where it kind of pops everything up on a screen. There's so many tools out there that are designed to help you be more efficient. And using them and checking them against the 5 principles of workflow that I talked about are going to make you an unstoppable machine. Find everything that I teach at learnvoiceacting.com. The 2 things I think you guys would be interested in is either the main academy, which is like 30 hours of content, soup to nuts. Doesn't matter if you're a veteran in this industry or whatever we go through, auditioning technique, session technique, building a signal chain, joining the union, talking about vocal health, managing your money, negotiating properly, literally everything I like in my career. The other course I have that I actually just released a couple months ago is called Crush Online Casting. I'm almost positive you guys are familiar with online casting and perhaps that I used to be the #1 voice on voices.com and other sites as well. Yep. And it's just a program designed to show you kind of how I did that. The workflow module I talked about is in the academy itself, and you guys can use coupon Voices Rocks to get a 20% off coupon.
That's great. Well, please do check out learnvoiceacting.com. And of course, Joe's generous promo code Voices Rocks for that. We are at time, and this has been just absolutely crammed full of value here today. So I hope, the notepads are full out there. And Joe, I just want to say thank you so much. I mean, it's so cool to hear you go through your process. When I showed up here at Voices, you were already there at the top of the leaderboards. So just getting some of that insight into the person behind it and how you've achieved what you've achieved is super cool. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me. Go out there and be efficient.